Once upon a time, there was a dragon named Gilgamesh. He ruled over the mighty kingdom of Uruk with his mighty talons. From his goddess mother, he inherited beauty, strength, and great courage. From his human father, he was given mortality. Someday, Gilgamesh would die. Gilgamesh was famous for his great buildings like temples and cities. The only problem was he got his dragon subjects to do it for him. Gilgamesh was always looking for a new challenge, which meant his subjects had to do it with him, because when he had nothing to do, he would fight. His opponents lost every time because Gilgamesh was so strong. The dragons of Uruk were fed up with Gilgamesh. They were tired of building for him and tired of losing brave, good dragons in his wars. The subjects of Uruk prayed to the gods for help. The gods heard their plea and created Enkidu, someone who could match Gilgamesh with his strength and courage. Enkidu was a wild dragon with rough scales and wild black eyes. He lived alone in the desert with other wild creatures. One day, a dragon from Uruk named Ea flew into the desert to hunt and saw that all the prey was hiding in caves. Then the dragon from Uruk, Ea, spotted a scavenger and dove down to catch it, but Enkidu countered Ea in fury and saved the scavenger. Ea flew back to Uruk to tell Gilgamesh of her encounter with Enkidu. Gilgamesh's response was not what Ea had expected. Finally, Gilgamesh was excited. Finally, a worthy opponent to fight. He sent a beautiful dragon, Mandarin, to lure Enkidu out of the desert and into the city. Mandarin flew into the desert to get Enkidu and flashed her scales all different colors. Enkidu stood, watching the beautiful dragon hovering above him. He had never seen such a beautiful dragon before. Enkidu fell in love with her instantly. Mandarin cooed and motioned for him to follow, gracefully soaring through the air. When Enkidu got to Uruk, Gilgamesh started a fight with him. He clawed at Enkidu, but Enkidu's scales were tough, and he clawed back. A fight broke out between the two. Enkidu knew he was stronger than Gilgamesh, and he called off the fight. From then on, the two were friends, best friends, and went on epic adventures with each other. One day, a goddess wanted to be with Gilgamesh, but he refused. The goddess, Ishtar, sent down a boar to chase Gilgamesh and Enkidu down. However, Enkidu and Gilgamesh caught the boar and used its horns for ceremonies. In a rage, Ishtar cursed Enkidu with a terrible illness to punish Gilgamesh. After 13 days, Enkidu passed away in Gilgamesh's arms, and Gilgamesh was devastated. He was afraid now, even though he had conquered so many terrible monsters. He could do nothing to save his friend Enkidu from death, and the only monster he wanted to fight now was death. Gilgamesh heard of the immortal named Utnapishtim, who was the only mortal granted immortality by the gods. All dragons on the way to Utnapishtim's palace told Gilgamesh to turn back, but none of them could succeed in changing his mind. When Gilgamesh got to Utnapishtim, he shook his head and said, "Everything has had an end since the beginning of time, and I cannot help you. I am immortal because Ea, the water god, told me of a flood and to prepare for it. I did, and was given immortality because of my survival." Gilgamesh still pleaded with Utnapishtim to grant him immortality, and Utnapishtim agreed on one condition. "If you can stay awake for 7 days and nights, I will grant you immortality." Gilgamesh accepted the challenge. The first few nights and days were easy, but by the 5th, it was difficult to keep his eyes open. Finally, on the 6th day, Gilgamesh fell asleep before the challenge was over and lost his chance at an immortal life.